Welcome. This presentation represents a proposal for the adoption of serious games at Western Governors University. So what is a serious game? The genre is a relatively new innovation and is sometimes referred to as an educational game or a simulation. A serious game is essentially a video game designed and developed for educational purposes. That is to say, they are not intended for pure entertainment, and as such, they include very specific pedagogical and instructional elements intended to provide opportunities for students to engage with rich, meaningful content in a fun, interactive way. As educators, we try to provide students with the knowledge, skills, and abilities necessary to be successful in the real world. In 1933, Edgar Dale developed a visual representation of the different types of activities students are often presented with in a classroom. His graph, depicted here, demonstrates the fidelity of those various activities. Unfortunately, the classroom often prevents educators from providing students with the higher fidelity activities due to operational and logistical limitations. Consequently, students are exposed primarily to low-fidelity abstractions that they are expected to apply in a real-world context. Serious games represent an opportunity to expose students to both a higher fidelity and more interactive experience in a controlled, manageable context. Understanding serious games as an innovation requires that we understand how they developed. As you might expect, serious games trace their roots to the video game industry. Although the first video game console was developed in 1967, home-based video games did not truly begin to emerge until the advent of the Atari 2600 in 1977. This triggered a significant diffusion of console video games that has yielded incredible advances in technology. Army Battlezone is generally considered to be the first serious game. The U.S. Army commissioned its development in 1980 with the intention of using it as a training and marketing exercise. Although the project was halted before completion, it set the stage for further military research and development into the use of video games, culminating most recently in the development of America's Army, which since its release in 2002 remains the most played online video game in history. Modern serious games have expanded on the model set by America's Army, as well as Darfur is Dying, one of the most widely known examples of a serious game. As I stated earlier, serious games are a relatively new innovation. Overall, in the educational setting, the knowledge stage of its diffusion is still continuing, and the persuasion stage has just begun, fueled in part by the success of games such as America's Army and Darfur is Dying. In 2002, the Serious Games Institute was established to promote the use of and research into serious games in educational settings, evidence of the growing significance of this media. In the coming years, the implementation stage and the confirmation stage will emerge, possibly within the next 5 years, as more and more institutions begin to adopt, develop, and research serious games. Current estimates suggest that approximately 8% of higher education institutes employ serious games either as a primary or secondary learning resource, which may not seem significant at first glance. However, in the study of diffusion of innovations, 20% is generally considered to be the point at which an innovation has achieved enough steam that its continued diffusion is nearly self-sustaining. For serious games, that means we can expect a relatively rapid rise in use over the next couple of years, culminating in an explosion of adoption once current critical mass is attained. Not coincidentally, this rapid growth is being fueled by both rapid advances in computer technologies, enabling more realistic, rich computer-based environments, and an emergence of interest in new, more interactive learning resources. Given the rate at which these two influencing factors are developing, I estimate that we can see critical mass on the diffusion of serious games within 5 years. The primary difficulty in the development of serious games was, and still is, striking an appropriate balance between the entertainment value, which produces engagement and fun, and the learning value. Too much focus on the entertainment produces only incidental learning, while too much focus on the learning produces non-engaging, dry experiences. This balancing act is made further difficult by perceptions of many educators who feel that academic work should be rigorous. They often equate fun with triviality and thus see games as inappropriate for the educational setting. Developers, innovators, and early adopters must consider these perceptions carefully, not only in the creation of serious games, but, if the innovation is to diffuse, also in the manner in which serious games are introduced to other potential users. So now that we have discussed some of the general principles involved in the emergence and development of serious games, we can turn our attention to how serious games fit the strategic direction of the university. As you know, the WGU model has 4 distinguishing characteristics that set it apart from most other institutions of higher education. We are competency-based, meaning that we evaluate students against a set of pre-established outcomes that describe what they can do. Students move through their program in an asynchronous, self-paced manner, And finally, we strive to embed real-world knowledge, skills, and experiences within every facet of our curriculum. Let's now look at how serious games address those four components. Currently, many of our learning resources are text-based, requiring a high level of abstraction on the part of students. Serious games, on the other hand, provide opportunities for exploration and discovery, two very critical elements of learning. Competency can be evaluated based on the metrics the games provide, which are directly aligned to the competencies we outline. Almost all video games inspire the development of communities, where players interact with one another, solve problems, and share knowledge. While we actively attempt to provide students with opportunities to move at their own pace, we often sacrifice the social dimension of learning. Utilizing serious games will inspire the development of communities much like those we see in video games. We will, of course, need to provide a platform for those communities, but the net result will trigger a great deal more interaction among students and mentors. Serious games will also allow us to maintain a model where students work independently while providing them with real-time feedback. At the same time, serious games will allow us to leverage the strengths of social learning without slowing students down. Finally, the active and interactive nature of serious games lends them perfectly to the application of real-world knowledge and skills in an environment where practice can be conducted safely. As you can see, serious games address the four primary cornerstones of the WGU model quite effectively. In an attempt to identify specific key innovators, early adopters, and opinion leaders, I have compiled a list of individuals who should be part of the initial project team. Greg Fowler is included because he oversees the course mentors and also because he's an opinion leader. His influence will help us sell this innovation to those that work directly with students. As an early adopter, I suggest including Greg in the initial project team. Phil Schmidt is another opinion leader and early adopter who can influence others regarding the adoption of this innovation. His work with the curriculum will be instrumental in helping us identify programs and courses that lend themselves to this type of learning. Again, Phil should be included in the project team. The course mentors themselves are an extremely important part of this project as they work directly with the students and can make or break the success. Because they are a widely varying group, it is my recommendation that a select few of them identified as innovators or early adopters be included in the project team. Members of the Learning Resource Department tend to be innovators. They will be instrumental in the success of this project because they will be the ones who work on the development and acquisition of the games. If they do not buy in, I highly doubt it will be successful. Finally, the IT department should be considered carefully. As a source of student and mentor support, they can influence student experiences with the technology, and they will have to provide a structure for the serious games. They are also a variable group. I suggest including some of the key opinion leaders from the department in the initial project team. Within the course mentors and IT department, there are a number of laggards that need to be considered carefully as well. I believe that once we have a few exemplars in place to demonstrate the relative advantage and compatibility of serious games, they will be easier to bring along. However, we should be prepared to engage some or most of them in direct discussions to ensure that their concerns are heard and that they have opportunities to try the technologies out before adopting. Earlier I mentioned that a 20% diffusion rate is considered critical mass for an innovation. There I was discussing the higher education industry as a whole, but the same principle applies within any organization. Thus, we need to develop a strategy for achieving critical mass if this project is to be a success. I would like to suggest that we employ a personal interaction strategy with prospective early adopters, especially those who will be part of the project team, providing them with information, demonstrations, and opportunities to play with serious games. If successful, we can begin to build exemplars. Simultaneously, the members of the group as opinion leaders and early adopters will influence others in the university. Just prior to critical mass, we will need to change our tactics somewhat. I suggest we make serious games a significant component of our annual mentor meetings, providing information, discussion, and opportunities for play at the conference. As a more mass media approach, this should resonate with a large number of individuals who have heard about our efforts. It will also allow opportunities for the laggards to explore, express concerns, and try out the technologies before they adopt. I'd like to conclude this presentation with what I believe is the moral of the story. Higher education can be difficult to navigate, especially in the fast-paced, shifting world we live in. We have a responsibility to provide students with opportunities to gain the real-world competency they need to adapt and succeed in the workplaces they will be living and operating in. Serious games offer us an opportunity to do just that, and I hope you will join me in championing this innovation at our university. Thank you.